Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, episode 171. It's going to be a ton of fun. Joel Drucker, writer, author, speaker, consultant. I wrote the book, Jimmy Connors Saved My Life. Don't bet on it, about his late wife. California, Berkeley grad, award-winning historian, encyclopedic. I would say he's an intellectual who gets jockocracy to the highest level. Can cover the whole gamut, the pro game, instruction, instructors. Braden, great friend of Vic Braden's. He's an expert on brain typing. I have it on the desk here. The article made it all the way to the cover of Tennis Magazine on brain typing. Players past and present, you name it. On top of that, he's a funny guy. I'll give him a call. And we'll get on it. Here we go. Joel Drucker.
Hi, Steve.
Joel, thanks for being a guest on the GreatBase Tennis Podcast.
Great to be here. We're happy to join you and your audience and talk about this game we love so much.
Yes. I just went through a little bit about your background. Tell us, let's get going here. Tennis in Southern Cal in the 70s. I tell people I'm a product of the tennis boom. I'm a product of the tiebreaker. If it wasn't for the tiebreaker, story of circumstance, like so many people my age, I'm a little older than you are. Don't think I'd be in tennis if James Van Allen didn't step up to the plate in 1970. But tell us about your start. Go ahead.
You wouldn't be in tennis if it wasn't for the tiebreaker. Really?
Well,
are you telling me you're a terrible returner?
No, is that tennis was put on TV. And,
I see.
And
okay, got it. So that helps tennis get on TV.
Just like everybody else. You know, the scores were 22-20 and 16-14.
Sure.
And, I think that is one of the biggest reasons that tennis boomed. And
that's a great call. So for me, it was we moved to Los Angeles in 1970. We lived in other parts of the country, and my mother started playing tennis because we're sunshine year round, and she started playing and took me and my brother to a park, and I got hooked. This was around 71, 72, and the game was booming, and I'm a child of yellow balls. I realized I've never played a match with white balls. I've hit some with white balls, but I've never played a set. I never opened a can of balls, that old style that was like a sardine can.
Right.
The pop and the yellow ball, and there were metal rackets and all of that. So, and LA then was a real, it still is in ways now, but even then, even more so, it was then. I went to Tony Traber's camp, and he was at the camp every day, and the CBS broadcaster, and he lived near me. Jack Kramer lived in the area, and he had the incredible best-selling rackets and all these other ways he was involved in the game. And Jimmy Connors was living in LA and practicing. So it was to grow up in Southern California and LA in the 1970s around tennis is as if you were in country music and you grew up in Nashville. I mean, all sorts of big people. And so I was able to engage with the game at a fairly, high level, just involved level. People who really were engaged with the game. I mean, I had Wimbledon champions in my zip code, and UCLA was 2 miles away, and saw great players there. And it was and the game was booming. It was on TV all the time. So it was happening, and it was cool.
Tony Traber, Cincinnati. He one time the voice of American tennis. Covered all those matches.
Yep.
I was at a banquet one time. It was really cool. He was asked the question, "Who's the greatest player of all time?" And he mentioned several players, but he summed it up by saying, "But in the end, my mother thinks I'm the greatest player of all time."
Well, that's what we have mothers for, right?
Right. Tell us about Jack Kramer. What comes to your mind when you think of Jack Kramer?
Bigger than life. That logo, that crown logo on the racket that many of us, I think anyone over 40 or maybe even 50 now recalls that racket, the Jack Kramer autograph. And that crown that was the logo on that was kind of the Nike swoosh of its time. I mean, Jack Kramer was the man who lit the candle for open tennis throughout the 40s, 50s, into the 60s. There is no open tennis. There's no for Jack Kramer and the traveling barnstormer sport. He was also a great player. So that means he was David Stern and Michael Jordan. Think about that. He was both.
Wow.
He was number one in the world, and he was the promoter for the tour. So he might be arguably the most important person in the history of the sport. I'd say Jack Kramer, Billie Jean King. I mean, these are the people who took our sport to places that were unimaginable.
No, I spent so much time with Vic Braden. I know you did as well, but Kramer was his go-to guy. Kramer was his mentor, his idol. Always when you're
Vic
with
Braden,
Vic.
well, Vic Braden, one of the great coaches of all time, who we both do pretty well. You extensively, and I knew him pretty well too. And Vic worked for Jack's tour. Although Vic joked that I think he said that half his job involved apologizing for things Pancho Gonzalez had done.
Yeah, I've heard him.
That was one of Vic's jokes. So those were quite some interesting days.
And then what happened at the Kramer Club? That's an amazing story. It's actually in Vic's first book, Tennis for the Future, came out in '77. He said, I knew under pressure, Gonzalez, with his really strong continental grip on the forehand volley, was going to go cross court. That was the reason I could buy a golf course and build a tennis club. But the Kramer Club.
That's what Kramer said?
It's in the book.
Oh, that's funny.
I
think it also helped that Jack Kramer could pretty much aim any serve he wanted to the guy's weaker backhand, hit that forehand down the line approach shot to the guy's weaker backhand, hit volleys to the guy's weaker backhand, right?
Yeah. Well, I think also his geometry teacher helped him out so much.
Coach Roach, Cliff Roach at the LA Tennis Club helped Kramer refine the serve volley game. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So many things. Vic has that video where he interviews Kramer, and Kramer said that, I use so much of that. There's a big difference between, little kid tennis and big kid tennis, and learning how to force. And
in those days,
yeah,
in the days until the 200 backhand changes everything, and even Jack couldn't quite see it. He called Ponce Segura's 200 forehand the best shot he ever seen, and he knew it was from something that he had never seen before. And then, but as recently as 1974, Jack was calling Connor's 200 backhand an eccentric shot. He didn't quite see what the future was going to be with the game, and that's okay. It's hard to see that, but call it a forehand, call it a backhand, it totally changed the serve volley dynamic. Serving to a two-handed backhand is a whole different deal than serving to a one-handed backhand.
No, it's great to hear that, because I think most often you hear people say the racket changed everything. But when I first started,
it's two-handed backhand.
Yeah, when I first started playing, it was rare to see someone with a two-handed backhand. It was all one-handed.
When did you start playing? In 1970, 65, 68? When did you start playing?
I was introduced to tennis in 1972 when I was going off to a prep school, and my parents said my father learn what it's like on the other side of the tracks, and in the Adirondack Mountains. I was a dishwasher at a camp, and outside of my cabin were tennis courts, which up until that point in my life, I thought the tennis courts were for street hockey. And, I was just fascinated. Vic said in his book that, from the outside, tennis looks pretty good, or it looks pretty easy. People can bunt a ping pong ball back and forth. That doesn't mean they're competent, but, they can get a ping pong ball like pickleball today. They get more balls back. But then I found out how difficult the game was. But from the outside of the fence,
what did Vic say? Not only is hard, but people can see your legs.
Say that again?
That was one of Vic's things. Vic said, not only is tennis hard, but people can see your legs.
Yeah, there's some great
And then,
lines.
but the other thing, there's another line someone told me, it takes 3 years to become a crappy tennis player. I mean, it's a skill sport. I mean, think of the things, think of what it takes to learn how to serve properly. And I suspect my informal survey tells me that if you take people who learn to play the game, they start the game past the age of 20, and they did not play baseball or football extensively, 80% of those people never learn to serve with a backhand grip. So they have a cap on the most important shot in the game. They never make that learning. And that's a major learning. I mean, I'm glad I taught myself that when I was 12. I learned to hit a spin serve, a lefty, and I learned to hit like a reasonable slice serve, but I know how to serve. But I don't know. It'd be a lot harder to pick up when you're older.
No, for sure. We break it down to pizza position, pull down for the people that have a forehand grip and palm up, to salute position, twist up. But that's another thing that's changed too. Is years ago it wasn't fair for girls as far as sports, but I mean everybody could throw all the boys throw baseball, but not anymore. They don't play baseball so much. It's not as popular as it once was.
Right.
Olmeda, tell us a few things about Olmeda.
Alex Almeida. Alex Almeida was a great player. He came from Peru. He single-handedly came here, ended up in a bus and came cross country and um, went to Modesto City College briefly, and then he went to USC and became a great player there. He won the NCAA's twice. He's a great server, great volleyer. And 1958, 1959, he was really the man. At the late 58, he helped the U.S. win the Davis Cup. The U.S. hadn't won it in 4 years, and he was the hero. He had some big wins, and then in January 59, he wins the Australian Championships, and then wins Wimbledon. Beats Rod Laver in the finals. He's a tremendous player. After his pro career ended in the 1960s, he taught for many years at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Probably no one taught more Oscar and Emmy nominees, Grammy nominees than Alex Almeida.
Peruvian with, today I think that the junior tennis players, we talk about it all the time. As years ago, when I was a kid, there was a TV with 3 stations. Then PBS came along, and that's how Braden really got his start by doing the tennis tip during the changeovers. But yeah, the appreciation of tennis history. I loved the late Bud Collins, and listening to you rattle off, Olmeida's background.
Well, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you an origin story about me in tennis. And you mentioned these people like Jack Kramer and Tony Schreiber and Alex Almeida, all who lived within 5 miles of where I live. So that's pretty special to grow up in an area where there's 3 Wimbledon champions within 5 miles of your house, and there are oodles of others. Again, Connor's is practicing in the area, so that's 4. He's winning Wimbledon, and lots of excellent players around. Some people probably heard of, like Mike Franks and John Douglas, and these were top 10 Americans there. Alan Fox. These are great players. Larry Nagler. The origin story for me, and this will help propel our discussion further. I was a sports geek kid when I was 9, 10 years old, and I played some Pop Warner football, but I also liked reading about sports and reading like Sports Illustrated and the Sporting News and magazines, and I devoured that stuff. So now I'm 12 years old in 1972, and I'm digging into tennis. So I'm starting to play, and I'm reading about it too. And I'm reading a copy of World Tennis Magazine, or some book. I'm reading a book, World of Tennis, 1972. This is an annual book put out by a British publisher. And I turn to my older brother and I go, "Hey, tomorrow is Julie Heldman's birthday." Julie Heldman, one of the original 9, great woman player. And I say, "Tomorrow is Julie Heldman's birthday." And my brother, older than me, gives me the kind of look that older brothers give younger brothers. And he goes, if you played tennis a little more than you talked about it or read about it, you might be a good player one day. And my joke is, and that has made all the difference. It's fine. I can play tennis all right. I'm a okay recreational 4-5 player, whatever. But we all, maybe sometimes we all have our fate and our destiny. And my destiny was to do yet even more, or make a living. How many 4 or 5 players also can play and make a living riding and being around tennis all the time?
With UCLA as well, just the players that went to UCLA. I mean, I remember, now all these years later, I've worked with people that have played at UCLA. We have a student who's there now. So, but I used to have the off factor. The off factor that is just awesome to just be on the UCLA campus. It's amazing how many Olympic medals, but just tennis itself I one time was at a match where McEnroe was playing Telscher
we were both there, Steve, April 78.
Okay.
Elliot had match point. We were both there the same day, you and me. Why didn't we talk then?
Yeah. When I first was with Vic, I lived in a van and worked as a volunteer. And I went all over Southern California. We should have got together back then.
We should have. We could have. Yes, but that was a great day. That's one of those great college matches. And Telscher had match point, and he was supposed to approach down the middle. But he ended up, we tend to hit our approach at the open court. Gave McEnroe this angle, and McEnroe hit this great cross-court backhand pass. And that turned the match around.
Of course,
incredible.
And McEnroe just played the 1 year. How about Telscher? He played more than 1 year,
He played
correct?
the one. No, he just played that year also. He played that same year also, 78. He turned pro soon after also.
Did a workshop in Southern Cal, and Telscher came to it, and I said, well, let me use these two books, and one was Malcolm Gladwell's The Story of Circumstance,
Hmm.
and with if the one thing was, and then the other was the talent codes, Daniel Coyle, the pocket of achievement of success from the Kramer Club, but it just worked out perfectly where they had Vic first and they had Lansdorp second, and then
Those are two. Well, those are
they
right.
had Gene Austin working the desk. They had a players' lounge, um, and it was amazing. It was
Well, yeah, they have people also like Dennis Rizza and other people, and yeah, Peter Smith is there now. It's a great club. I mean, and that's all from. I think the vision of that club was really Vic Braden. The kind of Vic was smart enough to know let's make Jack part of it. Let's make it name after Jack. Let's name the club after this incredible player. Vic found the land, and Vic was living in the South Bay at the time. That's one of the iconic clubs. That's kind of a later stage club since it opens in the '60s, as opposed to these older clubs like the Los Angeles Tennis Club or the club I played for many years, the Berkeley Tennis Club that was founded in 1906. So, but all these clubs are part of the mix that's kind of laying the groundwork for the tennis boom.
And then Pete Fisher, there was other coaches in the area too. I know Pete Fisher, I've read where
Yes.
he took Sampras to, was it Larry Easley? What was it?
Very easily for the volleys, and there was other teachers too who Pete went. Yes.
Yeah. Um, Certainly, California at that time, I would have to have a fact checker for this, but I think in the 1970s on the men's side, it was pretty safe bet that there were 70 Americans in the Wimbledon draw, and most of them had a connection to California.
Well, they played there and they'd grown up there. But what I found very interesting, if you look through the '70s and '80s, the juniors were far deeper in California, but the East Coast ones who were good had the McEnroes, the Mayers, Vitas Gerulaitis, Ricky Meyer, Michael Fishbach, Peter Renner, Peter Fleming. They, in proportion, there are a lot of them who did even better because I wonder sometimes. I've written stories about this about some of the Californians. They worked so hard to get out of the section with each other that by the time they got to the pros, maybe they're a little worn out. And plus, the game was changing in the '70s. The fast court, hard court serve volley game that they'd been growing up with in the '60s and '70s. The rug was being pulled out from under them by everything from Clay at the U.S. Open from '75 to '77 to the two-handed backhand. The whole dynamic of being a serve volleyer, the way Jack Kramer and Billie Jean King had learned it, was changing thanks to people like Chris Evert and Borg and Connors.
No, it's true.
Tremendous.
There's so many players. Yeah, they weren't offensive off of that wing. I mean, there's a lot of returns that were floated, and if they were accurate
Well, but
enough on
even
the
if they were
serve,
great, I mean, Jack Kramer talks about Don Budge and Tony Traber had a great one-handed backhand, but a great one-handed backhand is still not going to be able to consistently threaten the serve volleyer to the extent that a two-hander can routinely. I mean, for example, forget the very best ones like a Connors two-hander or a Don Budge one-hander or a Tony Traber or in a Borg, but move down the ranks. So in 1975, your number 10 to 15 player is a one-handed backhand like a Marty Reeson. But on the other hand, by 1995, it's a two-handed backhand like a Richie Renneberg. And that's a whole different return to field than prior.
with I think also the East Coast, certainly more play on clay, not only at the U.S. Open those 3 years, but in the juniors, especially in Florida. But then also to the cost of real estate. I know it's really increased here recently in Florida, but a teaching pro like myself couldn't afford to say, okay, I'll have a place where 20 people can stay. Cost of real estate was just too crazy in Southern Cal. So I do think that it became a little bit more international. People talk about the proximity to Europe. But yeah, at one point, California, my opinion, was just heads and shoulders above any other place in
Well,
the
they had
country.
the weather dump. There weren't as many indoor courts also. And and that's a great point you also make about real estate. As the game grew, and things such as the Voluntary Academy took hold, if you wanted to create and traffic just getting around. So if you wanted to create more of a centralized tennis environment, Florida was more viable than California. California still has a great many tennis players because it's different. So anyway,
Joel, on the two-handed backhand, you know, I'm always hoping that there could be just a effort to have kids play serve and volley more at an early age, so the art of serve and volley doubles doesn't go away. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think, the court's 36 feet wide and you got a partner that's aggressive? We're always telling people that if you serve and volley, you should really only have to cover, less than 18 feet if your partner's aggressive.
Well, I think it should be. I think people learn to be. I'll tell you a story. There was a child at my club. He was 12 years old, and he was getting pretty good. He was already getting better than sort of the 4 or 5 men like me, and now he's playing. Our club had some ex-college players. He's playing well, but he was still playing doubles with us men like me, and he would serve and stay back, and he would just wail forehand. And I said to his dad, when he plays doubles with us, you got to serve and volley. You got to build that skill now, because if you're not quite comfortable with the net by the time you're 15, it's going to be a third language. It's going to take, you're going to be too invested in winning. You're going to have college recruiting. You're not going to be building that skill. So he needs to get comfortable with the net now when he's 12 and he's serving to me. And who do you think I am? Merit Sakin? So the dad goes, well, he's playing the game of today. That's the modern game. He's playing today's game. And I bit my tongue, because I wanted to say is, I don't want you learning the game of today. I want you learning the game of tomorrow, because the game of tomorrow is going to beat the game of today. And the game of tomorrow, by the way, is the game of all eternity. All these people, everybody was swooning over Roger Federer for 20 years. Look at this guy and all the shots. But very few people had the willingness to broaden their array of shots, to play like that, to do things, to hit. And I said to a parent, oh God, he's so creative, he's so brilliant. I said, I'm no genius, but I know how to play a rally and hit a slice backhand and a topspin backhand in the same rally. I know how to hit a drop shot approach shot. The Sabre is 100 years old. But to get back to serve volley, that 12-year-old was being done a disservice. Why wouldn't he? Or there was another 11-year-old who got good enough. He beats me. He beats me the way, the smart, all-court, kind of grinding style. Why not have him play me by serving and volleying when he's 11, just to build the skill? But if you don't learn to build those skills when you're young, and doubles is a great avenue to do it, you get too invested in your outcomes by the time you're 15, 16, and you're not going to want to do it much. And you're going to call it, like, I know someone who, that's how they play from the baseline, and they said to me, oh, I guess I got to take more risk. I said, if you think of it as a risk and call it a risk, then you'll treat it like a risk, and then you won't do it. You need to understand it as an investment. And you need to give yourself, even when you lose the point, a 0.25 tax credit for doing it, because now you're altering the ebb and flow of the whole match. Because now you've got the net in play, and now you've got doubt, and now you've got different parts of the court.
Well, thank you for saying that. We have parents that listen to this. I always have said.
Oh, I know what I said. I'm going to add one thing. When the father said to me, "This is today's game," I did say to him this. I said, because he said, "I don't know. This is today's game. He's playing today's game, not certain volley." I go, "Let me tell you something. When I was 12 years old, I won the spelling bee, and I was number 3 in fractions. Pretty good. But when I started struggling with grammar and algebra, my mommy didn't threaten to fire my teacher."
Yes. Okay.
And that's the world we're in now, where parents are these customers. And if a teacher says, okay, let's invest in some long-term playing for the next, I want you to play 2 practice matches a month where you serve volley twice a game, whatever, something that's investing in tactics. Well, no, that's his UTR. Oh, his ranking. Oh, he won't get recruited, or this or that, or the scholarship.
Oh, the way you say things, writing this down, third language, it's like learning a third, it's going to be like learning a third language. Or the Sabre, the attacking, 100 years old.
The Sabre, Maurice McLaughlin was running the Sabre in 1912. Chip charge, baby. Sandy Mayer's whole career was a Sabre. I joked with Paul Anacone. I said, Roger had the sneak attack by Roger. I said, Paul, you had the Oba, obvious attack by Anacone.
That's funny. With the Mayer brothers, I one time asked, George Basho was speaking, he's the old Roosevelt,
Mm-hmm.
during
Yep.
the tennis teachers conference, and he was talking about the system that Dr. Mayer had. And I said, why did the players play? So the two brothers have a different style. And Gene Mayer was there with him, and he said, Gene, why don't you answer that? And he was not very humble, but he said, I was so good in the 12s, I could just entertain myself. And Billy Martin, who went on to have like one of the best junior careers ever, he said that he had beat Billy in a national final, Love and Love, and would entertain himself by hitting drop shots and top spin lobs. But no, I think just to know the history of tennis.
Alex Mayer was a brilliant coach, and they were both brilliant players. But I think maybe in a way this also takes us to a topic near and dear to our hearts, Steve, which is brain typing and how people are hardwired. And you look at Gene and you look at Sandy, and these are very different minds, and these are very different views of the court. Sandy, a certain kind of discipline. I mean, everybody has a discipline. Sandy, a very pattern-based, repetitive discipline. I mean, tremendous. What a player he was, particularly a volleyer. Oh, what that's just fantastic. And Gene, a little bit more.
Just touch upon John Nienagel and your work with Vic and your first meeting with John, and then get back to Sandy. I guess Sandy was a J, and his younger brother was a P.
That's a good call. I'd say that's a good call. I mean, I think you want to hear about my first meeting with John Nienagel?
Yeah.
Well, I was talking to my colleague and friend Mary Carrillo, and Mary said she'd been at a conference and she'd recently seen Vic talking about this whole concept of this brain typing thing and how people were wired. And Vic told her who she was, and Vic told her who he was, and so Mary said to me, "You gotta check this guy out." So me being who I am, and I'm an ENTP, and the ENTPs are kind of intrepid. We'll call anyone. So right out of the blue, I called John Nienagel. I said, "Oh, I heard about you from Vic Braden and Mary Carrillo," and within 5 minutes, John said to me, "Well, let me tell you what type you are." And he pegged me completely right. He even said to me, he says, "I wouldn't be surprised if you're left-handed," which I am. So who are you? What are you, Dionne Warwick? Where did you come from? And so we started talking, and I was just mesmerized by John and his ideas and the things he explained to me about how Jimmy Connors, for all his expressiveness, is actually an introvert, and how Pete Sampras, as taciturn as he was actually an extrovert. And I dove into this. It helped a lot with parts of my marriage, even because my wife was an INFJ, and all these things. And it helped me a lot with interviews, particularly not soon after I started doing this. I had a chance to interview Sampras, and I figured out the psychology of interviewing a fellow ENTP, which Pete was, and to let them have their space, and and certain people, when you like certain players, I would know that one of the first or second questions to be about their family, to get them comfortable about that. I mean, very incredibly helpful for learning. It helped a lot with my tennis. I know what works and what doesn't work with my tennis. John explained to me. John Nienagel had never seen me hit a tennis ball, and he explained to me how I won matches and how I lost matches. And it was you'd think he'd watch me play 15 matches.
Well, Vic's intellectual curiosity, certainly he'd be so enthusiastic about, this project or that project. But one thing is that for years, well, I would say 15 years anyway, in his travel bag, he had John's book. I mean, he was fascinated by John's work.
Oh, John's stuff is wonderful. And I talked about it with our good mutual friend, Andy Fitzell, who I emailed him today saying that we connected. And Andy, an ENFP like Vic, and Andy and I would talk about these things. We'd watch things with players and see how certain things. We spent time together for a few years at Indian Wells, talking about how certain players were, and it was just tremendous.
Well, the article that I mentioned before we came on in an intro that went all the way to Tennis Magazine, the project you worked on with Vic. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, where you just players from the past, the current players, and
we just emptied the bucket. We put together a whole spreadsheet of these questions about who's some famous war of these 16 types, what made them, what drills they should work on, what kind of doubles partner they should have, all these things that added, that kind of was like a whole topography of it. I mean, we did this, the article came out in 1998. It was one of the most satisfying things I've ever worked on.
Yeah, I mean, who to put in the deuce court, who to put in the ad court.
That's right. That's it. Who to drill, whether you're the type of player you should drill at length, or you should do things more game based. I mean, this has tremendous implications for how you learn.
One tip, Jim Courier, I have the same brain type, ENFJ.
Yes, you do.
Is Courier, and the tip that you wrote you quoted Vic, where it's they need to mellow their intensity.
Yeah, you guys get a little hot, don't you?
The emotions,
different. Yeah, different than the ISTP, which is your exact opposite. Different than that. It's a different type of intensity. But yeah, you guys are your own worst critic.
Well, yeah, back in the day with the tennis boom, and then spent a lot of time with Dennis Vandermeer as well, and wearing a whistle. But it's one thing, your job. I mean, even if you're not an ENFJ and you're coaching 100 people at the same time, ran this program where you're training tennis teachers. You learn to blow the whistle, and it's delegating, and it's cracking the whip a little bit. But yeah, I think that I think of Courier. I've heard Courier say you can't believe the person he was. I mean, he certainly is mellowed. When he's on TV, it's not the same Jim Courier that was grinding.
I worked with Jim at the first. I worked with Jim at 2000. I worked with him at Tennis Channel, but back in 2000, right after he retired, I worked with him at the first TV event he ever worked on for TNT at Wimbledon. And he was tremendous. He's a great colleague because the intensity he generated when he was playing was a lot of himself, that his desire to excel and hard work he put in. He was, as a colleague, he was exemplary. He was tremendous to work with.
A friend of mine, his mother's name is Linda, I believe, right? Is it correct? And
yes, Linda Courier, yes.
Had her read what John Nienagel said about Courier. It's amazing how people say that it's just spot on. Where
Linda read that, thought that was accurate.
Yeah, with
great.
It's like with Vic asking John McEnroe's mother, because he's on TV, he's got a microphone, and he's similar to Connors, way he worked an audience or what have you. Differently, yes, but definitely people would think, like you said about Sampras being extrovert and Connors being an introvert, but Mrs. McEnroe said, no, John is a flaming introvert. That's what she told Vic.
Right.
But it's a great tool. I know that so many major colleges and universities still use it for job placement.
Well, and corporations.
That's right. Yeah.
Lots of places use all sorts of things. Yes.
Then, as you said, for helping couples, I talk to parents about it, and I think opposites attract. And then what happens is the kids it's like the ping pong balls going back and forth. The kids in net, and then they work one parent against the other, being a master manipulator. Well, mom likes this, and dad doesn't like this, so I'll ask mom this question.
Well, the opposites. I think there needs to be some commonality. My late wife was an INFJ. I was an ENTP, and there's this whole way connected around language and ideas and intuition. But she said to me once, she said, this is around the time we were learning this stuff, she goes, how can you call someone you've never met, who's never met you ever, and talk to them for 45 minutes? And I said to her, how can you watch a Pampers commercial and burst into tears? and she said, touche. Yeah. And there's a whole connection. I've read a lot about that connection between the ENTP and the INFJ. All of these types have the capacity for connection. It's just a question of how long the bridge needs to be to make it happen.
Tell us a little bit about Connors. I was on the phone with you and Andy way back when we were talking about the Vic Braden Library, and I was just teasing, saying, hey, I want to talk to you again, and I think I know more about Connors than you do, which I was just teasing.
Well, I don't know that I don't know you can measure that, but tell me where you want to begin. Where do you want to begin, or what do you want to know? I mean, tell me what's of interest to you and your audience.
Well, I think the parenting. I mean, Gloria. Start with the Gloria and
Gloria Connors.
Mom 1, Mom 2.
Mom was the grandmother. One of Gloria Connors' things that's rarely mentioned, for all her compulsion, but she was very clear how long she wanted Jimmy to practice when he was young. She would rather he did 15 minutes of something and did it just right than spend a long time stalling. So she made sure when he was young, always cut the practice short just when he's eager for more. And so that kept him eager. And I also saw to it that his practice sessions were never particularly long, 60 to 90 minutes, but they were hard. And he brought all of his energy to it. And it reminded me of something he told me once. I interviewed him many times, and he said, if you play every match like it's the big match, when the big match comes, you're ready. So his thing was a certain type of honor and respect for the game and the preciousness of the time. And that was her and Tumam instilling that in him, that sense of focus and urgency that he brought whenever he played. And we all saw that. So I think that's a real superpower that Connor's built.
Oh, and then also too, she was so smart to, at 15 to take him to Pancho Seguro.
That's right.
What comes to your mind with Seguro?
Well, Gloria Connors and Tumam taught him how to keep the point going, which is the first thing we need to do. And he wins the national 16s in August 68, about a month before he turns 16. And she knows he needs how to end points. He needs someone else. And so it's Segura, who's got a great shot from the right side with a two-handed forehand, which is like the Jimmy Clinton backhand. And those two are one of the greatest player coaching combinations ever. In a way, they created contemporary tennis. So, eventually Connors becomes tennis's first rock star. But in the meantime, the real business was bringing him to the Beverly Hills Tennis Club, having him work with Pancho, and having work in Pancho teaching him not just how to keep the point going, but how to end it. And Pancho, I spent a lot of time with him. He put me through some of the drills that he did with Connors to build those skills. Like how do we close off the court? How do we take advantage of a return? How do we see the patterns? And Connors did that superbly. How do we kind of vector our way through the rally to control the points and to punish short balls and to do all these things? So and you're right. And Gloria Connors had the vision and the awareness that a lot of her work was done at that point. It's time to turn them over to someone else.
I like the Jimmy Connors drill where, he plays practice sets in 15-30, one serve, start the set from there, dig himself out of the hole. And you play a set and every point is 15. You start off at 15-30 with one serve. I'm not sure if that came from Gloria or from Pancho Seguro, but I just knew that as a Connors drill. That
I hadn't heard of that one. That's an interesting one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
I think that's
Jim Lair. Jimmy. They were at Sanibel Island, and Jim's school for mental toughness was based there. And Jimmy didn't buy into. I think Lair is. He's a pillar with our curriculum. He's been great for tennis. Arthur Ashwin said, I think he's the most important person in tennis because of all the parents climbing the fence and what have you. But yeah, that's where I heard that from, and that I thought it came from Gloria. But regardless, the Connors, it's a great drill. So you got to get that
That's
first
one drill, but it's one drill. What's important with these drills is, for example, is to not have it be the drill, because you don't want to learn how to play every point like it's 15-30.
Right, exactly.
You need to learn how to play some 40 love points for investment spending, not simply to win them.
Yeah, we're always telling young 12-year-olds, you're up 40 love, math's on your side, you take a risk, and if you at a very early age hit a body serve and go forward, they won't have the angle. And then, like you said, if they don't start early adventuring up to the net.
It's not a risk if you learn how to do it. It's not reckless if you own it. It's not a risk if you learn it. Build a skill.
Yeah, no,
that's what I would say. I know what you mean.
No, I stand corrected on that. That's where, that's why Welby Van Horn used to just ask people that he'd meet, how do you develop a tennis mind? And just hearing you say that, I don't need to call that a risk. It's an investment.
I don't even know what a risk is.
Yeah.
Risk, right? Because when we see things as risk, we don't want to do them justifiably. So we need to see them like I asked a question. You talk about 40 love. I'm a left-handed 4-5 player. I'll ask you this question. I'll put this to you, Steve. I'm serving in the first set to a right-hander. He's fairly good off both sides. This is the first set. And I'm left-handed. I got my 4-5 slice serve. It's 2-all 40 love. Where should I serve?
Well, I would think that you can't put strategy in black and white because of the strengths and
No, but
weaknesses of your
2-all, 40
opponent.
love. No, I told you the righty. He's okay off both sides. He's not. There's nothing extraordinary
So
off either side.
it's say again, you're up 40 love.
2-all, 2-all, 2-all. First set, 40 love. 2-all.
Yeah, depending on the skill set of my opponents, I would go body and tell them to come in. I mean, I primarily work with
Well, okay,
developmental
but
players.
I would. Okay, okay. In lieu of, I'm left-handed. Remember this. We're not. Would you tell me you wouldn't? I'm left-handed. You would tell me to go body?
Well, I think most lefties. I would ask you. I don't want to. I'm not avoiding the answer to the question, but I think a lot of lefties are just, they're trying to hook the ball. They're trying to hit an ace with their
Yep.
slice, and they don't hit it into the body.
Spot on. What? See, I like that's right. This body, or even go. Why don't I try to go right down the tee, Roscoe? Just go for it. Not go for it. I don't like that term. Hit it big down the tee or body. You're right, into the forehand body. Because now some people who've even played slams said to me, "Oh, you should go wide and just end the game. Hit the normal serve." I said, "You know what? There are going to be plenty of wide slice serves in the ad court, right?
Right.
I'm going to hit that lots and lots of times. So why not 40 love? Throw it down the tee. If I make it, that's pretty cool. If I miss it, I've let you know that I might hit it there, and down the road that might help me buy some space. Otherwise, some doubt in your mind. 2-all, 4-all, 40 love. I might not say that. 4-all, 40 love. I might say, get out of the game. Let's get out of here right now. Go with the girl. Hit the wide serve. Get out of here."
Actually,
but 2-all,
when you mentioned Roscoe, there's a boy here from Florida, a young kid who's been taking some serve lessons from Roscoe. It's kind of cool. He said, "No, you're too big in the back. Everything happens out front."
let's
But for me, I'm emphatic about, I mean, kids will play 100 points. Kids will play an entire weekend and not have one overhead attempt. And I think that, Vic Braden would say, "Steve, you don't want to die by your principles." So go body. Let's see it just go in and at least attempt to hit a volley.
Oh, that's serve volley. Well, I'm glad you mentioned it. I serve and volley a lot anyway, so I forgot to mention that. But if you're a base finder, I see your point. Body, serve and volley. That's a great call. And see, and then someone else said to me though, not a world class player, but someone who played college tennis as well. But if you lose that point, now it's 40-15. And maybe you lose the next point, it's 40-30. You got to fatten it down. I said, so now you're treating every point like it's 15-30. That's like being a football team and treating every down like it's 36 instead of 2nd and 1.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback throws the ball 3 times. 3 things happen and 2 of them are bad, but you still throw the football.
Well, actually, but that's Woody Hayes from the old days of the 3 yards in a cloud of death era. The problem now is the rule. Not the problem. The deal now is that was in the days when if you completed 50% of your passes, you were darn good. Now you complete 65. The rules have changed a lot, right?
Well, I think also, I mean, I don't know that much about it, but Bill Walsh and the short down and out, and
Bill Walsh changed the whole dynamic about that.
What was his brain type?
He was in the. Oh, very good, Steve. This is a setup. He's the ENFJ. Oh my God, you were working towards it the whole time, weren't you?
No, but the ENFJ is that the coaching tree. I always thought that he was a P and TP. I thought he was a planner.
I thought so too, but John Niednagel told me he was an ENFJ.
He just, just from the outside, he just seemed like he was California cool. I did see him being the Lombardi, roaring like a lion.
Well, Lombardi, I think, was in the ENTJ, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So, but I want to get back to the serving point. I want to get back to this point about playing point and the score. And the point I'm making is that people need to learn these things. And Constance Segura, by the way, was a genius. And I know he taught a lot of that to Jimmy Connors about how you play to the score and the things you can do. And I talked to enough Connors opponents to know the ways that he would do things at late stages of the match that hadn't happened the whole time. And so where that comes from, and he would alter the DNA of the match. And Segura understood playing the score. Like Segura said, of course you 2-all 40 love, you serve down the tee. You're going to be hitting that wide one plenty of times. On the other hand, when you're late in a tiebreaker, I was playing a league match once. My partner and I were very late in the decisive tiebreaker. And now I'm serving the ad court, and my partner goes, Once you surprise him and goes down the tee, and I said, being the ENTP I am, I said, surprise him. At this point, I'll tell him, here it comes. Here comes the wide slicer right to your backhand. We've been out here for 90 minutes, buddy, and you haven't shown me anything new otherwise. So here it comes, all dressed in white. Here comes the bride.
Serve +1. That must drive you nuts. I say that, it's like, I think a lot of kids, it's like they think they should play that all the time. I think 12-year-olds are arching their back and tossing the ball over their head, and they're hitting some kick because the ball's going high over the net, and then they're running around all backhands and loading up with extreme grip and trying to end the point.
I find it's shorthanded. What I find more annoying, at least kids who learn it are learning kick serves and learning, inside out forehands with contemporary grips and topspin shape. I find it kind of mind boggling when someone over 40 or 50 is thinking they're going to play that way. Like, running around backhands takes a lot of energy. You better you better hit a big forehand when you do that, huh?
Yeah, and coming back to football, I mean, a Djokovic is somebody who's, he's staying in the pocket. He's not putting himself out of position. Like
stand in the pocket. That's right.
So many other players.
He has faith in both sides. He's so good on both sides, right?
Yeah. But I'm always telling you, I'm in the developmental side, is that, it's okay to run around your backhand, but first develop a backhand. You don't want to be hiding anything. Like, I can't hit a backhand.
Yes.
The Bradenisms, like, you think your forehand's great because you're comparing it to your backhand, but I think that a lot of kids don't realize that they love their forehand because with these Babolat rackets, are cracking a winner. It's like Welby Van Horn used to say, the worst thing that can happen to you is hit a lucky shot, and you just kind of try to keep hitting it again.
Yeah, you think you're entitled to it. You think you're going to hit it again and again. I mean, it's just, yeah. I met Welby a couple of times. I wish I'd known him more. He sounds brilliant. Yeah,
just his body balance position. Now, Welby, I mean, I was fortunate enough to spend time with him when he's in his 90s at the nursing home. And, he knew that he had made some mistakes, and I think that's what makes somebody really special.
What were some of the mistakes he thought he made?
Well, when he taught, people were playing with a wooden racket. 3 of the Grand Slams, the majors, were on grass.
Right.
And he would have younger players use an Eastern grip, and then the championship grip, the composite or Australian, have them edge up towards a continental.
Okay, but that was then. That was
then. But because it was just go to the net, go to the net, go to the net. And then he was a huge fan of Federer, because Federer was a guy who's, as Welby would say, he was on balance when he was off balance. And but like so many people in that era, the penny on edge, the shake hands in the back, shake hands in the front, the 180-degree swing on a 20-degree court. But yeah, basically the grip on the forehand side. Not that Welby would have been one to say that he would have honored the extreme grips that we see, but not to have people edge up towards a continental.
But that era, this is the era of the ball was bouncing. And I'm glad I learned to play in 1972 in Southern California, because I went to Tony Traver's camp. He taught an Eastern forehand grip, so I learned that. But my forehand is my grip probably gets closer to continental at times than it does to Western, and shaping. They knew a lot less about swing shape patterns then. Some did, like Vic and Welby and people like Tom Stowe, we could talk about another time, and others, but there wasn't as much knowledge of that because the courts were so low bouncing and fast. I mean, I joke, in California, the third forehand is the approach shot, wherever you happen to be on the court. I mean, there weren't long rallies being played. People were serving volleying on both serves, and that was considered the big boys game, right?
Yeah, no, I think the approach shot, we call it the anxiety shot, that people aren't playing the approach. They aren't playing the approach shot like they want to follow it up with a volley. It's just, they're just going for the $100 shot from the 10-cent position.
But that's more now, because there's more of a contemporary forehand. Once upon a time, when the courts were faster and you were approaching the one-hand backhand, you could just kind of hit the kind of a chip charge and make your way in.
Why do you think that like something like brain typing, or like Bill Jacobson, he took the scoring patterns of, like a green light point when you're up by 2 or 3 more points. Why don't you think that there's a better handle on it, or people aren't studying tennis teachers from the past?
wait, so what's the question? Why aren't people studying
Yeah,
tennis?
in other words, the project you and Vic put together. I mean, I think that should have become a great tool. The brain typing is a great
Oh, but
tool.
see, I think here's I'll give you the macro answer. People don't like studying things from the past because it forces them to study things from the past. People enjoy occupying the here and now so they can move now and into the future making money. About the concept of reflection and looking back and forwards across time, that takes a lot of work. It's the same way, like when I hear teachers talk about the modern game, sure, they can just study what's right in front of us now and not have to see the ribbons and the textures that help them understand the connection between, let's say, Don Budge's backhand and Novak Djokovic's backhand. But I don't think that's just true in tennis teaching. I think that's true in all realms of endeavor, in all worlds. I know that it's reflected. That's why I'm a writer who makes a nice living, but it's different than if I was in finance looking and speculating on stock prices. I think it has to do with why people don't study history that much. It's viewed as ancient instead of this circle of time that connects us.
That's well put. That expression, history repeats itself. I think many times if you watch a match, not as far as the drama and how it ends out, but in the developmental and the grassroots stages, if you've seen the first 20 points, you've pretty much seen the match. As far as
that's what.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, that's true. But see, even that is in the present moment. So people don't, people, and also people associate history. It's often taught poorly. It's often taught as memorization, and so it becomes desiccated and distant for people. It's not always taught with the flavor and texture that makes it come to life. So it seems like drudgery, like homework, like, oh, I got to memorize the names of the presidents and state capitals, instead of seeing it come alive. And it takes an inspired kind of teacher to bring that to people, to have them see those connections, have them see those ideas. And a lot of people, not many people like studying those kind of things. I mean, the world, the people don't read that many books. People don't read that many books. People don't study history. They'll watch a documentary sometimes, but they don't want to really, read about Theodore Roosevelt or James Polk or
Right.
Jane Austen.
But that's
just not where people are living.
Say for example, the Welby Van Horn balance method. It's just something that stands the test of time, and I just think it should be a requirement for those people teaching in the elementary.
Well, but how are people learn how do people learn how to teach what they teach? They go to conferences and mostly someone is showing them, this is how I'm teaching the contemporary forehand. Or I asked a teacher once, I remember asking like this, how do you teach the forehand volley? And he showed me his stroking technique. I said, I don't know how you hit it. I don't know how you hit the volley. That's how you teach it. And I think the teaching a lot of tennis instruction is filled with people who are excellent players who say, here, this is how I hit the ball. Watch me. See? And that's one form of teaching, but it's not as comprehensive as it could be.
Right. It's not information. It's not nuts and bolts. It's just visual.
Well, it's a certain form of visual learning, and see how I hit it. And I think that's why I'm very ambivalent about a lot of this internet instruction. I'm going to send you a video, and you're going to look at my video, and then you're going to give me input from a video instead of being with me every minute while I'm hitting it. You're going to do this distance learning, or then I was at a teachers conference and I said to a bunch of guys, I said, you're all coaches? Really? When was the last time you watched your student play a match? Your coach? Don't ever call yourself my coach unless you've watched me play. What? 3 matches? You watch me choke? John Newcomb said to me a great thing once. I go to this fantasy camp he runs, and he says, be leery of taking too much input from someone who's never seen you win.
Oh, that's great. Tell us about the fantasy camps. I know we could wrap this up. We could talk to you forever. Have you been to quite a few of those fantasy camps? I've
been to John Newcomb's tennis fantasy camp 25 times.
Oh,
John Newcomb and a gentleman named Stephen Tardy, also an ENFJ.
Yeah.
Stephen Tardy runs a great club out of Cincinnati called the Club at Harper's Point. And Steve years ago went to a baseball fantasy camp. He said, how do I do this for tennis? So he figured it out, and he contacted Newcomb, and he rustled up a bunch of legends like Roy Emerson and others, and on and on. it went, and this event started in 1988. It's been going for, I just came back from the 36th year of it. I've been 24, 25 times. There's also a mixed one in March that I've been to as well. And it's just fantastic. It's kind of like league tennis with Wimbledon champs coaching you.
Is it always at the same venue?
It's at the same venue. It's at Newcomb's Ranch in New Braunfels, Texas.
Yeah.
That's in between San Antonio and Austin. And third week in October. And I've played, John Newcomb has probably watched me play at least 60 tennis matches. Not always start to finish, but plenty.
And the same legends, or it varies?
The legends have evolved over the years for aging and different things, but the core have remained a lot. And Newcomb has been at the core of it. But there's Roy Emerson and Fred Stolle. They weren't there this year, but Rod Laver came several times, and Rosewall. Other people like the Jensens and Ross Case and Ricky Leach and lots of people. So you play on these teams. I mean, I had a situation once. This is what I call the experience. I'm playing a match, and versus someone we're late into it. We're in a decisive tiebreak and a super tiebreaker. Laver's coaching him, and Emerson's coaching me.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, wow, this is a few years ago. I said, at this point, only 2 men have won every singles major twice or more. And right now, their eyes are on my tennis match.
Amazing.
That is pretty cool. And they're coaching us. They're coaching us during the match. So that is I call a meta tennis experience. That is one rich experience. As a rider, I mean, and my teammates are watching, and his teammates are watching. So we got like 20, 25 people watching, which for a recreational player is about 30 more than I've ever played in front of.
And then the social side of it too. I mean, I had a chance back in the day to hang out with Roy Emerson when I was working for Vic. He was teaching at the John Wayne Tennis Club. He was working with Armitage, Nastasi, and Billie Jean King, and Kim Wittenberg was the assistant pro. And we would hit balls, and one of those times where Vic is out of town, and I'm going to go hang out at the John Wayne Club, and Billie Jean King, and she had her points. We were just off to the side, and she started yelling at us, and she wanted some privacy. And Emerson said, Kim and Steve are friends of mine. If you apologize to them, Billy, or the lesson's over. And she came over, and obviously the players have so much stress and what have you. But tell us an Emerson story. What comes to your mind if you had to just tell one Emerson story for the Yuck Yucks?
Tremendous. Oh, pure class and grace when it comes to behavior. Roy Emerson personifies the Aussie code. And the one simple thing is, if you're hurt, you don't play. If you play, you're not hurt. And there's no excuses for it at all. So I once did an event with Roy Emerson, and months earlier I had played one of his campers at the fantasy camp. I was playing for Newcomb's team. And I'm driving him to the event that I'm going to moderate, and he's going to speak. And he says to me, he says, "Oh, that last match you played at camp, it didn't look like you were quite yourself." And he knew I was a little depleted from some prior tennis. I probably shouldn't have played, but I played. And he said, "So what was going on when you played?" I go, "I have too much respect for you and the game to say anything other than I got the crap beat out of me." And that's how you talk to Roy Emerson. You don't say, "Well, I was this and I was that." There's no this or that when it comes to competing, because anything to do that is actually to insult the game and your opponent. It's the code of sportsmanship.
John Wayne Tennis Club. Ross Case just Masters. They just won Wimbledon. And Roy's son, it was Tony, correct?
Anthony.
He it was just one set, but the chirping, the humor, the trash talking, I remember watching that. I also, one time at the back of the Boca Raton Hotel, and Gerolaitis, people knew him as a partier, but he worked so hard.
Oh, he was like contemporary Emo. He worked like a dog.
And he'd been playing tennis. I just knew Jimmy O'Brien was nice enough to just let me be in the right place at the right time, helping with the tournament. And it was one of those Bill Reardon tournaments. And Vitas lost in the first round, but he stayed and just practiced like all day. At the end of the day, I was the only person watching. It was the back of the Boca Hotel as he played a set with Emerson. So they were playing at Boca West, so the hotel is 10 miles away, and he's practicing again. I think the older players are always good for one set. They just can't play
Well,
two,
I'll tell you.
three,
I'll
four,
tell you
five.
Roy Emerson's story. Here's Roy Emerson. Roy Emerson is getting ready for Wimbledon some years, and he played the Queen's Club tournament. But there would be rain, and it would be delayed, and he wouldn't get enough practice time. So a couple of times he decided, I'm not going to play that tournament. What I'm going to do, I'm going to practice indoors on the fast wood boards, which are even faster than grass. And I'm going to get another player. I think it was Ronnie Barnes or Lenny Schloss or some other players. Say, all right, mate, let's you and I practice. We'll practice every day. We'll play 6 sets. We'll play 6 sets to get ready for playing 5. And that's what they would do. Play 6 sets.
Lenny Schloss, he was a guest on our podcast at Village G King I Coach. What a great guy.
Yes.
What is Roy Emerson's brain type?
I think he's an ESTJ.
ESTJ. Yeah,
I think he's an ESTJ. I think. Don't you think?
Well, that Aussie humor. He's just like ESFP.
Oh yeah,
entertainer. Get on the piano and drink some beers.
But Roy Emerson also supremely disciplined.
Yeah,
I know people won't get this immediately, but when Novak tied or broke Roy's record, I wrote of Australian Open Championships because Roy had won 6, and I think Novak had, he's now won 10, but when he won his 6 or 7, I wrote an article explaining how Roy and Novak were very similar in their approaches, even though Roy was a serve volleyer. Roy was, people associate serve volley tennis with like this swashbuckling, risk-taking, coming to net. No, in those days it was house money. And Roy Emerson, just as Novak is so disciplined from the baseline, Roy Emerson was so disciplined from the net. Get your first serve in, serve your share of the body, make your first volley. Just very, Emerson was kind of a grinding version of a serve and volleyer, kind of like Patrick Rafter was.
I heard him once say that the reason he was so fit, the Aussies being so honest, he goes, I had lousy technique, I had to be fit. But each of the Aussies has their self-deprecating reason for why they had their own superpowers. But Roy, he also knew that's something you can control is your fitness and your attitude. Like Navratilova said to me once, she goes, in tennis, there are only 2 things you can control: your toss and your attitude. Yeah,
and Roy's attitude is just the first rate for competition, for triumph and disaster and balance of mind. Don't get too up, don't get too down. Just go about your business, get in lots of first serves, and on and on.
Yeah, I think sometimes today players actually they're getting too much attention. They don't even play enough sets. There are a lot of kids.
The practice set. I mean, I don't know how you talk about this with the juniors you work with, Steve, but I was talking to a junior once at my club, and he was 14 or 15, and I said to him, and my club, the Berkeley Tennis Club, plenty of court time, plenty of people to play with. It was the middle of summer, and I said, these last 2 weeks in August, how many 14 days, how many practice sets have you played? There's 5. I go, 5. All I ever became was a reasonable hack, and at that time, I would have played 25, 30, and I wish I'd played more. I mean, it's not unreasonable to play 2 sets a day when you're 14 years old in the summer.
Well, you're like Bud Collins saying you're a hack. I mean, Bud Collins, I one time had to go pick up his typewriter, and I was fortunate enough to, it was in Stowe, Vermont, and I came back, and like you would know, he was playing barefoot. But he was a really good tennis player. I think he won a mixed, didn't he win a national title?
He won the national indoor mixed with Janet Hops when he was like in 61. Yeah.
But one thing that's gone away is the veteran versus youth match. I always ask
I played some of those in the day.
Who wins the toad? Vic would say the toad, the guy my age who's got a big floppy hat to hide from the sun and little pot belly and band on their elbow, or the hotshot junior with the matching shoes and bag and headband, and those matches.
It all depends. Yeah, go on.
I was just saying those matches, unfortunately, they don't happen anymore.
Well, that's because the practices have died, and also I think, I played some of those at the Berkeley Tennis Club. The young juniors are less at one place, and they're playing at other places, and they're going off playing ITF events. They're not as club and sectional bound as they used to be. Yeah, those things were fun. I played several of those when I was in my 30s and 40s. Yeah, although I played one, and this is a line I forget if I told it to Vic, because he told it to me. I played a young woman. She was like a very good 14 and under player. And we played one of those at Berkeley Tennis Club. And she beat me in a third set tiebreak. It was a long match, and she just completely exposed the weaknesses of my forehand. And anyway, so I lost. The next day, someone goes, I don't know how I feel about losing to a 14-year-old girl. And I go, the ball doesn't know how old you are or what gender you are.
Yeah.
And I greatly enjoyed that experience. And she and I played several more times. But I think people, older people, younger people, and then younger people, whether they want to play someone who's going to drop shot them and all this. I had many fine experiences playing juniors.
Well, the girls have it tough because the boys, the macho male ego, the boys don't want to play the girls. And then young girls, younger players don't want to play older players. So you can't be a tennis snob. You got to play anybody and everybody. I think.
Yeah, well, you got to beat everybody.
I think money comes into it too, where kids can be programmed out. It's like, we don't have ladders anymore. We don't have backboards anymore.
Right. Right.
I think the NTRP too. It's been a great business model, and there's a lot of positives. But you said you used to have to say in your section if you wanted to play national, they had 25s, 35s, 45s, and I think the youth versus veteran matches. And I know Wayne Bryan. Can you, who can you play when you walk around the block? Who you get on your bicycle, go a little further. Who can you play? Just find people.
Well, yeah,
to
but
play.
that's Wayne. That's act local. But but Wayne, by the way, to get back to Vic Braden, the Kramer Club. Wayne grew up in Hawthorne, and he went to called Vic Braden. He was like the Wolfman Jack, and the Kramer Club was all the music was coming out of back in the early mid '60s. And but that attitude. There's a whole different atmosphere around these day academies that kids and their families go to, and they're working out, they're clinicking. They need to play more practice sets.
Yeah, I think.
And you can't just go from a workout to an academy.
One of our guests, Dave Anderson, I love his theme. How do we improve tennis, American tennis in general? Is he says Back to the Future. There's things about the past that we should go back to.
Hey, I told someone once at Berkeley Tennis Club, they said, we need a junior program. I said, you want a junior program? It's the club directory. Here's your junior program. It's the club directory. Start making phone calls. I'll play him. I'll play your son. Have him call me.
Well, they say Bud Collins. Ed Weiss, I talked to him and I told him I was going to be chatting with you. And he went to one of those fantasy camps. And
I played Ed Weiss. Ed Weiss is an excellent player. Very nice, flat, penetrating stroke, as I recall.
Yeah, he said, you lefty, crafty, good player. And as we talked about earlier, he said he thought you were 5-0, but you don't think you're 5-0 anymore. You think you're slowing down.
No, that's kind. He's gracious. I don't. Yeah, maybe that was like, that 5-0 was that one brief shining moment. I don't. A while ago. Not now. I'm 63 years old. If you're a 5-0 over 60 now, or even over 50, you're one of the better age group players in the country.
Ed was Swarthmore. He was part of a national championship team, and that's another thing I tire of is kids going D1, D1, D1. It's just play. It doesn't matter. You don't have to look for any label. You don't have to go to national. It's just play. And you're right. It's how many sets and monitor that. And I like the idea that play up and play down.
Well, there are maybe there aren't any ups and downs. Maybe they're just opponents.
Yeah, that's
who you learn from.
Yeah, you say so many smart things. I think I've said this before, and you're proving it loud and clear that I always say your writing skills improve your speaking skills, and your speaking skills improve your writing skills. You certainly have a command. I think of you as an intellectual has such a high level of understanding of jackocracy.
Jackocracy, that's the Howard Cosell.
Howard Cosell, yeah.
Well, that's a different thing. Yeah, that's a different thing. The jackocracy, yeah, very interesting.
Well, yeah, the Howard Cosell, the theme. I never played the game, and
yeah, but I did.
Yeah,
see, that's the thing. I have, which is like I joke. If you saw the movie Almost Famous, did you ever see that movie with Cameron Crowe?
No.
He writes about music, but I'm like he's a character writing for Rolling Stone magazine, and I'm like Cameron Crowe, except I have a garage band. So the neat thing for me is that while the chance to write about it and play it is a really fun intersection that I get to occupy, and I feel very fortunate to have had that. I mean, if somebody told me when I was 14, losing my first 8 matches in the SoCal 14 unders, and my whole junior career, happy to win a round in a junior terms, and 2 was like going to heaven. That eventually I was going to be at a stage where John Newcomb will have watched me play dozens of tennis matches and talk to me about my tennis game and see how that weaves in with my writing. That's a charmed life, my friend. That is one lucky life.
Don't you have a breakdown? I know Jimmy Connors, you call him a rock star, but don't you, like one guy's the Beatles and one guy's the Rolling Stones.
Yes, Connors is Elvis. Connors was tennis's first rock star. He was the first one, and just like Elvis, he was kind of from the middle. Connors was from the boondocks of Illinois, and Elvis is from country boy, and Connors was the first rock star, and so that makes him Elvis. And then soon enough at Wimbledon there was Borg mania, so I think Borg was kind of the Beatles, the young fresh sound. And remember all those girls chasing Borg at Wimbledon? That was like something out of Hard Day's Night. And then a few years later comes a little more of a snarl, but a little more of an ironic tone to it. That's McEnroe. He's the Stones.
Oh, that's great.
He's like Mick and Keith.
So when Elvis died, Jimmy Connors said, "There's only a few of us left." So I think.
But Segura said to Jimmy Connors, he said, "The king is dead," and Segura and Connors said, "What a shame, there are only some of us left." And I know Connors liked Elvis.
Yeah,
I know Connors liked Elvis.
Yeah, I consider myself a student of tennis, but I was definitely a Connors fan. Just what he brought, he was just electric. Your friend Mary Perillo calls him the most, not the best player perhaps, but the most important player. He certainly
He's
was
not the only one.
He was certainly
not the only one who says that.
Yeah, so the tennis boom. I think when Connors, he was like Muhammad Ali. I mean, he certainly.
He was. He was like Muhammad Ali, Joe Namath, and Pete Rose all in one. And here's the other thing about Connors that I'll say this too. Everything tennis wants to be now, everything tennis tries to be now, everything tennis hopes to be now has its roots in Jimmy Connors. The emotion, the connecting with the crowd, the passion in play, the bringing the stadium alive, all the thing. Whenever we hear about a great thing happening like that, like Alcaraz and his passion for competing, Nadal and his play for your life thing, all of that has its roots in Jimmy Connors. Before Jimmy Connors, they're all great players too, but I would consider them, they were crooners. They were more like Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra, and they were great, but they were much less expressive. And Connors, who I wrote my first book about him, Jimmy Connors Saved My Life, was the first guy to really break through the wall and connect with people, for better or worse.
It's like he was
health.
CBS. I think it was CBS. He was playing the George and Alex Metrovelli, and they told Jimmy, hey, "Don't wear red. Tennis is broken out of the all white." And Jimmy shows up with red socks, red wristbands, red shirt, and says, "No one tells Jimmy what to wear, or no one tells me."
Well,
what to wear.
There you go. Well, no, Connors. He was the. I gave a speech recently at Forest Hills at the West Side Tennis Club, marking its 100th anniversary of the stadium, which also hosted music. A lot of great musicians over the years at the West Side Tennis Club. So my speech was called "Moments." Music, moments, and magic. And I made this connection. I said, there are two guys from UCLA named Jimbo who lit that place on fire, Jim Morrison and Jimmy Connors. And Jimmy Connors turned tennis from an acoustic garden party into an electric carnival. And no one did that. He was the guy. And that's less, we don't think about that now. Just like there came a point in the 70s where people weren't talking about Elvis as much. The Beatles knew about Elvis.
Yeah,
they sure knew about him.
They went to hang out with him.
They loved Elvis, and Connors started that all, both with not just with the antics, but the tennis itself, the two-handed backhand, the pressing all-court style.
But how about Jimmy with his serve? I know he did spend some time with Vic and getting aerial, and I mean, how did a guy like that do so well with not having? He improved his serve, but.
His serve was all, for a lefty, it was always interesting how his serve, he tossed it behind him and not in front. It was kind of rare. Most lefties don't need to generate that kind of twisting kick that he had. And most lefties toss it more to their left. They get the slice, they come around it. He improved his serve, no question. And he certainly improved it a lot when he won Wimbledon the second time in 1982. But it was always a work in progress. Well, it just showed you, how well he backed it up, how good his ground strokes were.
And you were there minute by minute with the run he had. Was that 91?
The U.S. Open. I was not at the 1991 U.S. Open. I was at the 1990 U.S. Open, and I was with Connors on the opening day that year. He had pulled out of the tournament at the last minute, but he was there and he practiced that day. And I got to spend a good part of that day with him. At the end of the day, as we were leaving, he looked back at the stadium and he says, "This is 1990. If I ever get back there, that place is going to rock and roll."
Boy, did it.
True to his word.
Wow. No, it's great to talk to you. I could talk to you forever. I think
Thank
we
you,
could
Steve.
take topics with.
Lots of topics.
I mean, with yeah, you're just spot on with so many things, and I mean, I need to go back and listen to this for our listeners and take notes. I think that I mean the term risk is not to call it a risk. I mean, communication is key, and obviously, that's what
You're a teacher, Steve. Yeah, communication is what it comes down to is meaning and words.
Yeah,
right?
but you've
Get the
given,
ball in front.
but there's so many lessons within what you said, and that's where people go, okay, I got to go back and take the time, and just some of the. Obviously, you're known for putting great sentences together, and you've certainly done it with this in the podcast. And I will go back myself, and we have a fairly substantial growing network of coaches. I started training coaches formally in '81, and basically. By 26, I had been trained by Braden, Vandermeer, and Van Horn, but we have other pillars like Lair and.
You got Vic, Vandermeer, Van Horn. You V for victory. You've got the three V's. The three V's you admired most.
Well, yeah.
Welby, Vic, and Vandermeer's Ghost. I mean, these guys are just great.
Yeah, we call Vic the Christmas tree and then the ornaments, but it's not really fair to just single one person out. So he definitely Braden's a cornerstone because of the science, but. Yeah, that's I think what you said about history to come back and but tennis teachers, I think it's too easy. I tease the doctors and say, yeah, it's much more difficult to become a tennis teacher than a doctor. I mean, we have to take 2 days and a couple $100 to get certified, but then less than half the people I've told now are not even certified. And YouTube education is not research. And I love what you said about YouTube tennis teaching gurus that instead of teaching remotely, get out there on the court. I don't think you can. Your 12-year-old student's not your client. It's not a consultancy. It's let's get out there and watch you play. And what you said about playing matches. But,
I'm surprised there aren't more teachers who say to their students, "Hey, instead of me just feeding you balls and working on stroke production, get your buddy and let me watch you two play." And figure that out. I mean, I did that for a couple of players last year. Earlier this year, I watched them play and I took notes and I wrote it up and we talked about it. I mean, and let's look at how the match plays out. No, I think not just counting up your errors. I think you have to counting up your errors. But,
No, sorry to interrupt. You have to have the best of both. I think that's one thing about McEnroe. I hear what they say about his school, participants, that he really believes you got to play. I mean, you've got you.
Well, he should know. Well, he proved it himself. I mean, everybody knows, and he's the first one to say it, that he didn't like to drill. He didn't like to practice, but boy, did he know how to play points.
Yeah. Carlos Goffey said in one of our podcasts, he's a young coach, and it was at Port Washington with Hopman, and McEnroe sits on the bench because they're making him hit overhead after overhead. And he goes, this is a stupid drill. And Goffey says, he's a young coach. He says, why? He goes, you don't hit 4 or 5 overheads in a row. He goes, maybe 2. So he just had that genius about him, figuring things out.
Well, but it's important to know this is where some stuff from brain typing and other things, and not just brain typing, but even the person themselves, how they go about building their game and the things they need to do. So what's interesting, though, with McEnroe, that he's right about that, of course. I've learned, though, that McEnroe, when he would practice before matches, he would do his strokes and things, but he made sure he took plenty of overheads because he knew that shot was all important for his net rushing attack.
Yeah,
the volleys were going to be there. Manage the ground strokes, get to net, and make sure that overhead is ready to go. And boy, did he have a great overhead.
Yeah, I've been told years ago that maybe they still do the short amount of time they give for the warm up at Wimbledon to get in and knock off some. Or not knock off, but it's not a matter of exchanging ground strokes. Just get up there and work it in the forecourt.
Right. So good.
But thanks again, Joel.
You're welcome, Steve.
I'll follow up and
we'll talk more.
I'll send you my notes on the lessons I've taken from this chat. But I know our listeners will
Fantastic.
be grateful. And what we're trying to do is, we give out free educational content, and we're just trying to help tennis teaching, help tennis players. So again,
Terrific.
thanks for your
Great.
time.
What's great to be with you, Steve. Thank you so much.
Yeah, all the
Okay.
best. All right. Good night. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Listeners, wow, big time guest around big time tennis, big time players. But I think most importantly, a big time tennis mind. My question asking, Will Van Horn used to ask people, how do you develop a tennis mind? Well, one was that it would be passion, and it's just, obviously studying, observing, and being around it. But just we'll put it in the write up. There's so many articles that you can go back that are archived that you can read that Joel Drucker has written. On the desk here, I have a copy of his book, Jimmy Connor Saved My Life. He wrote a book about his late wife as well. And this is it's a photocopy, but this is the brain typing article that he worked on with Vic. It's amazing. It's the article itself, but then it's a quiz. You take the quiz. We use this all the time. It's not scientifically validated, but it doesn't put anybody in a box. It's like and again, Andy Fitzell, we together have a podcast dedicated to brain typing with those who go back. I mean, the younger players, younger people in the game would not necessarily know much about, say, Stefan Edberg or John McEnroe, but both the same brain type. But it has examples of, say, an ESFP. There's 16 brain types, and here it's say, Lindsay Davenport or Gigi Fernandez, who did so well playing doubles, and it's there's columns, pros who play like you. So you go through the short questionnaire, your tennis style, why you win, why you lose. We should get this on Facebook. This should be mandatory for people teaching the game to really get a grasp, a handle on this. What help you need to improve based on your brain type, the best doubles partners for you, and then a tip from Vic Braden. But it's as he said, with one of the, highlight of his career was working on that project. Also having the book, I read, just doing a little research, that this book, and this is very thorough, Tennis for Dummies, that Joel was a technical advisor for this. But anyway, Joel Drucker, fantastic tennis mind. Thank you, Joel, and thank you for listening. Adios, amigos.